Hello and welcome to today's episode of Shooting the Shit. If you are watching us on Facebook, welcome along. Please do leave us a comment and have a chat with us whilst we're talking. If you are listening to us on a podcast, hello. This is only one of our first new episodes that are going live on a podcast and simultaneously on Facebook Live. So bear with us whilst we get used to it. So Shooting the Shit, for the uninitiated, is a feminism plus business channel. So we talk about all things to do with women and feminism, but we try and put a little bit of a business slant on it and try and put those issues of feminism into the context of the workplace. So today we are talking about eating disorders in the workplace. So first of all, we will do introductions. We will introduce ourselves. So Jo, what's your name and where'd you come from?
Hello, thank you, Rachel. I'm Joanne Grant. I'm originally from Leicester. I live in Surrey and I work as an editorial coach.
And you are one of our core Shooting the Shitters, aren't you? Or shitters, as your husband calls us.
Yeah, which distresses me. Yeah.
It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jo. Teri, what's your name and where'd you come from?
I'm Teri. I live in Longridge and I run Route 9 Studios, a commercial film and video production company.
Fabulous. And you are today's guest, aren't you?
I am.
Marvellous. And Hannah Weinhold, who are you breaking clients' websites?
I'm not, nothing of the sort. Hello, I'm Hannah Weinhold. I'm a director of Grow Traffic and one of the founders of Shooting the Shit.
Yeah, and I'm Rachel, also from Grow Traffic, also a founder of Shooting the Shit, also a feminist. So, as I said, today we are talking about eating disorders. Now, facts and figures, what I did research before we came live. So, approximately 1.25 million people in the UK suffer from an eating disorder, which is actually just a phenomenal statistic. Now, there's some murkiness around that figure, purely because a lot of people will suffer from an eating disorder and will never actually divulge that fact to anyone. They won't go and see the doctor. They won't do anything about it. They will just suffer alone in silence. But yeah, they estimate 1.25 million people, which is just phenomenal. And they split some of these statistics down. You can find these on the internet, but they split them down into age groups. And actually, a phenomenal amount of children nowadays suffer from eating disorders. So they split those statistics into girls and boys under 11, 11 to 18, and then over. And the figures are just absolutely terrifying. In fact, they estimate that 0.5% of teenage girls suffer from an eating disorder, which I know 0.5 doesn't sound like a massive amount, but actually that's an awful lot of teenage girls when you think about it. So, funnily enough, bulimia is the most common eating disorder. At a rate of about 2 to 1 people will suffer from bulimia as opposed to anorexia. But there are, of course, other eating disorders, which we will go on to talk about in a minute. So, the first thing I want to ask you is, what is your relationship with food? So, Jo, you went first before. Tell me again, what is your relationship with food?
I love food, but I also have I believe, how do I put this? I have a lot of guilt around food and a lot of control issues around food, which I wish I didn't have. And it's only in recent years I've realized that that's probably not normal or healthy.
And how long have you suffered like that? Has that been as long as you can remember?
Yes, definitely has become more of a thing. Oh, I don't know, like late 20s into my 30s, but there's definitely been different times in my life where there's been like little things. But I miss the days when I could just chomp down on a bowl of cheesy chips in the student union and not actually worry too much.
Yeah, and when you say you have issues around controlling food, is that limiting? You limit the amount you are allowed to eat?
It's controlling what I eat. So I get somewhat anxious if I'm not in control of what my meals are going to be. And, that involves being invited around friends for lunch or going out for meals. I suddenly am like, oh, I'm not going to be in control. So it's around that. And I suppose yeah.
It's really interesting that, because I was watching a documentary. I think it was on the iPlayer the other night, and it was about an Instagrammer one of the first Instagrammers. She was called Belle Gibson, funnily enough, not Mel Gibson, Belle Gibson, and apparently she was like an Instagram fraudster in the wellness field. And they were interviewing a lot of the women who followed her, and they were all women who'd followed her sort of wellness path. She claimed that she had incurable cancer and that eating healthy had made her better, basically, and it was all proven to be a big fraud. But a lot of the women on there, they had issues around food, but it was about eating healthy. It was exactly that. It wasn't like limiting calories or even binging. It was that they were obsessed with eating the right food, and it had to be healthy food, and everything had to have fewer than 5 ingredients. And so it's really apparent that, you know, eating disorder is not just starving yourself. It comes in all forms, doesn't it? Yeah. Teri, what's your relationship with food?
No, it's really funny. It's really sad, actually, when you said before that so many of the facts and figures show that it's children. I remember when I was a little one, like I'm talking 4, 5, 6 years old, at birthday parties, I used to accidentally drop my food that I got from the buffet in the grass so I wouldn't have to eat it, because I didn't like eating in front of people. It's just ridiculous. I don't know where that came from. Like, where does a 7-year-old get that from? But it's just so sad, isn't it? And it's like you were saying before, there's more than just anorexia, restrictive sort of. That's what I've suffered with in the past. You know, I would consider myself recovered now for all intents and purposes, at least physically so. But the mental effects, they don't really leave, unfortunately. Yeah, it's just horrible, isn't it? And so many people suffer with it. I've got friends that I had no idea suffered with it. I would look at my friends and I'd be jealous of their relationship with food, because I'd be like, gosh, they're so fit and healthy and beautiful and they don't have to worry about this at all. And then come to find out, oh no, actually they're tracking every calorie, and they're, you know, it's just silly. There's so much of it, and none of it gets talked about.
It's true, actually, because somebody put a comment on the chat that we were having in Shooting the Shit in the Facebook group over the weekend, and said that they just found out recently that one of their friends has been suffering with, I think, bulimia for years, and they never picked it up. And I said, you wouldn't, because it's so normal amongst women that we just count every calorie, or we're constantly on a diet, and it's just part of that everyday conversation, isn't
it? Like hearing your friend talk about being on a diet, or like counting calories. Oh no, got to go to the gym and burn off that burger. You just sort of go, yeah, me too. Yeah. Like when does that cross the line into obsessiveness? It's so hard to put your finger on.
It is. And sorry.
Go on, Hannah. Sorry.
It's so secretive by nature, isn't it? And it's just swept under the carpet that you wouldn't necessarily talk to your best friend or your sister or whatever about that, because there is so much shame that goes with it. Yeah. And I suppose the nature of trying to control so much what you eat, sorry, that's my horrible dog, that the shame goes with that. So, you know, not necessarily the shame about eating, just the shame about everything. And so you wouldn't talk
about it. And I think there's
a
big misconception that eating disorders are all about appearances and about how you look. Like, that's such a big misconception. And there's so many other eating disorders as well on the spectrum. Like you say, it's not just restrictive. There's binge eating disorder that so often goes undiagnosed because people don't believe some people don't recognize that as a real mental disorder. They think that people are just being lazy, and it's like, no, you've no idea what they're suffering with. And it's just silly. I keep saying that over and over again, but when you just look at it, like, how stupid are we all that this, you know, takes over our lives? But it's a mental condition, and I think until we start recognizing it as such, that it's not just I want to be skinny and look like the models on the magazines. That's part of it for a lot of people, I'm sure, but for me it was all about control, and it was all about, you know, if someone was mean to me, especially at work, like if I had a bad day at work and somebody wasn't listening to me, it was a haha, well, you can't make me eat.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna go home and I'm not going to eat my tea and you can't make me.
Yeah, do you know what? So I had an eating disorder. I was anorexic when I was probably like 13, 14, 15, and I went, you know, I've got a picture of me in our back room. I'm riding a horse. I'm at a show, and you can literally see like all of my hip bone is sticking out because I'm so thin. But that was because that started when our parents were getting divorced, and it was absolutely that. It was like, I cannot control any other thing in my life, but I can control what I put in my mouth and what I can eat. And then that started, I mean, this was in the 90s, when heroin chic was in. And I remember it started with being obsessive about counting calories and what I would eat. And we went to the gym every single night. And, it started off ostensibly being about health. But what it turned into was, I've just got to stop eating, and that's the only way I can control it. And eating is still now to this day a massive thing of control for me. I will normally only eat one meal a day between the hours of 4 and 8, and I congratulate myself that I've fasted. And fasting is good for you, and fasting regenerates cells, and and there is good science behind that. That's not bollocks, but I know at heart, no matter what story I put on top of that, I know at heart, to me, I have a sense of satisfaction when I have not eaten anything for 20 hours and I feel like I've achieved something and I've controlled something that day.
Yeah. And it's like you say, it's so difficult because there are benefits to fasting. I've got an insulin resistance, so fasting really helps me. So that kind of, if I'm not careful, that gives me a built-in excuse. And, because I suffer with PCOS, so I've got to watch my sugar intake. And I was saying to Mike, I was like, I've got to be so careful because I can use that as an excuse not to eat when we go out. And I can, if I'm like in a really bad mindset and I'm just not feeling 100%, you won't know that I'm just using that as an excuse. So, he has to kind of watch me sometimes and be like, right, okay, can we just take a step back here? What's causing this? Are you okay?
That's really interesting. Hannah, go on. What's your relationship with food?
Well, I was just going to say, Rach, I remember when we were kids, like if you ever had an argument with mum, your dinner would go in the bin. Like you would put your dinner in the bin, and that was like your way of getting back at her, that like you were going to eat your dinner and stuff. Anyway, so that's enough about your weirdness. My weirdness is I feel like I have quite a healthy relationship with food. I don't necessarily have a healthy relationship with my body, but I will pretty much eat what I like. And what I like to eat is healthy food. I don't like to eat processed food because of all the shit that goes into it. And I don't really like contributing to the capitalist regime of feeling like you have to eat bread that's not going to go out of date for 10 days and shit. So like I try, it's a long story. But yeah, so I try and eat, like, I suppose, clean as possible. But then, if I want 2 cakes after my tea, I'll have 2 cakes after my tea. And if I want to eat like an entire punnet of cherries in half an hour, I will do. And if I don't want to eat, I won't. Not that has ever happened, but and I try not to feel guilty about it. And if I do feel guilty about it, then I try and remind myself that it is only food, it is only sustenance. I'm not, shoving McDonald's in my face every day, and I exercise and I cook all my meals from scratch, although I have had a cup of soup for lunch, but I will have a healthy dinner. So I try not to beat myself up about it, and I eat healthily for health reasons, not for thin reasons. But having said that, I have been on a diet, I suppose, my entire life. I've always restricted what I've eaten. Yeah.
Well, so I want to come on to this actually, because you said just before, Teri, where does kids pick this up from? Where do we get this from? And yeah, we've got the subliminal messages coming at us from the magazines, of course we have. But Gemma's made a comment. So hi, Gemma, saying she was talking about her friend. She was a person I was mentioning just now, and she said her daughter, who is now 13, also struggles with food. Now, Hannah, our mum was very thin, like model, really tall, really thin. Our nan was really thin, and thinness was very much the goal in our family, wasn't it? And you were not by any stretch fat, you just weren't quite as thin as them. And so mum put you on a diet probably from about the age of 3, and that was constant. That was a constant narrative of your childhood. No, she didn't do it maliciously. She was genuinely trying to do the best for you. She didn't want you to get bullied and blah blah blah, whatever it was. But that's always been that narrative. So yeah, you have been put under this pressure to be thinner and eat healthy and be on a diet all your life. Teri, where you remember being like that as a child. Yeah. Do you remember anybody in your family? Where would that have come from?
Oh, I know where that came from. But it's again, there's no maliciousness behind it, is there? But like my mum's always on a diet, my sister was always on a diet, so I was always on a diet. It's just what you do. You're a woman, you go on a diet.
Yeah, and it's so damaging. And like I have 2 daughters, one of them is 9, and so she's old enough to kind of like really old enough to look at her body now and think, you know, am I fat? Is this right? Do I look right? So I'm always really careful that I never say in front of her, I feel fat, or does this make me look fat, or like, oh, I'm being good. I try not to say, oh, I'm being good, which I do say a lot. I never say, oh, I'm dieting. If she says, like, you know, like I've just had a baby, well, I'm not just, she's like 10 months old, but and I need to lose that weight, and I'll say to her, I need to lose that weight because it's unhealthy to carry that level of fat around with you, because it puts pressure on your organs, and because it does this and this, and so I'm going to exercise and I'm going to eat healthily, and that's how I'm going to do it. And hopefully that that's taken on board by her. But I think now it is just sneaking in how how society is, and she's starting to pick up on
But to play devil's advocate for a minute, Hannah, you might not actively say to her, you know, we need to be thin as women, blah blah blah, but all she sees you doing is being healthy, you know, trying to lose weight, exercising constantly. So, you know, those messages come through subliminally, don't they?
Yeah.
Jo, do you remember from your childhood, is this something that your mom had?
Oh, Jo? Sorry, you just froze then. I probably froze in response. Okay, so so I definitely remember knowing that some foods were bad. So like if they were going down the chippy, I would be like, I don't like the chips. I don't like chips because I knew they were unhealthy. But also I think I became more so, like I said, probably in my late probably as my mum went on to Weight Watchers constantly for like over 20 years. And I think about it, and I said that to her recently. I was like, for heaven's sake, Mum, you've been doing this for 20 years. And she's like, no, I haven't. I was like, you were doing it before I met Oliver, and we've been together 20 years now. And she was like, oh. And the narrative in our family, you know, it gets to you, but it probably was more as I've never been overweight. I've never had an issue with my weight, yet I, you know, always thought I should be slimmer, or my thighs should have less cellulite, and then I could control the food. And it was very much, and still is, a joke in the family about the size of my bum and how I've got the family big bum. So there was always comments about body and weight and size. I remember my brother telling me, I'm a tall girl, and I went through that stage that many of us were going, people come up to me and think I'm a model because I'm so tall. And my brother just said to me, your thighs are too fat to be a model. And I was about 13 or 14 at the time. So yeah, but he would pick up from my family.
It's absolutely insidious, isn't it? And I mean, if we go back to that message that, you know, good housewives, I mean, even you can read this now on the internet, can't you, about the guide to being a good housewife and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, women were given speed in the 50s and 60s in order to help them lose weight. And, you know,
God, I wish we could do that again.
I know, yeah, can you imagine?
Some drugs.
Not only would we be thin, but our houses would be clean as well.
We'd be so happy. Fuck the cleaning.
We'd be so happy, yeah, we'd be so happy if only we were all drugs on thinner. You see, we're joking, but that is the narrative that women were given for such a long time, and that drip feeds down. One thing I do want, I don't want us to give the impression though that this is just a women's issue, because I do think that's one of the big misconceptions about eating disorders. I know we are on a feminism channel, I get that, but the patriarchy is as damaging to men as it is to women. And somebody was making a comment on Saturday when we were chatting in the group about they knew a young lad who went to the doctors. He wasn't eating, he was starving himself, and the GP said to him that you can't possibly be anorexic because only teenage girls are anorexic and not boys. And this is how damaging this narrative is, isn't it? That, you know, girls have got to be thin and boys have got to be muscly. You know, actually that stress and that pressure is on boys just as much as it's on girls, isn't it?
100%. And especially when you consider that it is at its core a lot of the times a control thing. Like, that explains it. Like, it's not just teenage girls that want to be in control of their lives. That can affect everybody. It can manifest itself in so many ways, and this is just one of those ways and it can affect anybody.
And again, this is another one of the big misconceptions, and this is why I think a lot of people find it really hard to deal with, particularly anorexia, because they say, "Oh, just eat, just stop being silly and just eat." And actually, it isn't about food, is it? It is about control, and that fundamentally comes down to mental health. And if we don't, as a society, start tackling mental health as this giant pandemic that we're trying to deal with at the minute, not the COVID one, the mental health one, we're going to keep coming back to this. And especially I think with all the pressures that young kids have been under, they've been missing exams, they've not been in school, they've been isolated. Now with the COVID pandemic, I think the mental health pandemic is going to hit us with a double whammy, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah,
definitely.
So just a quick sort of we were supposed to about 5 minutes ago do a quick introduction about what the differences are between the different eating disorders, and I do just want to recap on it because I think it's worthwhile. So somebody tell me what anorexia is.
It's restrictive. It's you don't eat, or you eat very little. It's calorie based a lot of the time. There's things that people don't quite understand as well, which is a big misconception, is it's not always about the lowest calorie foods. A lot of anorexics will have safe foods and fear foods, and people don't realize that. Like for me, like bananas were like a really safe food because I understood a banana was roughly X amount of calories, but to a lot of other people with anorexia, they're fear food that they'll avoid at all costs. So just because you see somebody eating a burger or eating chocolate doesn't mean that they're not anorexic, because anorexics only eat lettuce. Like it comes down to how they interpret that, and the things that you eat don't reflect that.
That's also again about control, isn't it? Because it's exactly what you said. How many calories are in a certain thing. Like how many calories are in a bag of crisps. How many calories are in a block of chocolate. So you can eat that and understand how much you've had. Yeah. Whereas if someone put like a roast dinner in front of you, you wouldn't know how many calories are in that. So that's not a safe thing to eat, is it?
Exactly.
Okay, somebody tell me what bulimia is. Pop quiz.
Purging your body.
Yeah, bulimia is over periods of starving, but not to the same level as an anorexic, but then overeating, having periods of binge eating, and then usually making yourself sick, or sometimes taking laxatives, some way of getting that food
or over-exercising. I don't know if that falls under bulimia specifically, but a lot of people will just over-exercise to counteract. I get that the lines blur, don't they, across all of these different...
The lines do blur, but bulimia is very much so where you're right. Anorexia is don't take in as many calories. Bulimia is you can take the calories in, but you've got to do something to get the calories out again. And that's I think why it's so much more common, why there are kind of twice as many bulimics to anorexics, because it has a wider definition, more people fall into it. And so then because of that, we also have all of these eating disorders that are around the edges, which are overeating, which again, Peter, several people were talking about that the weekend. Overeating is as much of an eating disorder as undereating is. And that's a lot of people comfort eat, don't they? And will have, food as a reward system. So I have been good, and therefore I can now eat this humongous plate of chips because that is my reward. And that's as dangerous as having alcohol as your reward, or heroin or whatever, isn't it? Maybe chips aren't quite as dangerous as heroin.
No, but I think with any addiction, it goes to the point where it's controlling or damaging your life or your ability to live a healthy life. And, it's not just, everyone says, oh, I've had a shit day, so I'll have a glass of wine or I'll have a bar of chocolate or whatever. But overeating and binge eating goes to the extent of you're unable to control it. It's like it's an intrusive thought.
And that's the point, isn't it? It all of these things, beginners you controlling it, and what you end up with is it controlling you, and you lose absolutely all control over it, and that's when you become really ill. Okay, we've talked about kind of what it is and how we feel about it quite a lot. What I would like to come on to now is how do we deal with this, whether we are employees or employers, or we know somebody, we work with somebody who's got an eating disorder. How is the best way of going about it? I mean, Teri, you said you were suffering with an eating disorder when you were in the workplace. How was it dealt with you?
Well, it wasn't necessarily dealt with because I was keeping it very under wraps. I was very good at hiding what I was and wasn't doing. But one thing that I think is really important is just please stop commenting on your co-workers' food, because you've got no idea. Like, I remember I used to allow myself very specific foods. And one thing I used to eat every morning was saurine, because it was like high calorie-ish, but I could eat it, I could have a little bit of it, and then I'd be fine till lunchtime. And then I'd have a cup of soup or a salad, and then I'd go home and I'd have something small, and that would be it. That would be what I'd eat all day. And a coworker made a comment in jest about, gosh, she eats cake for breakfast because it was saurine. So then I stopped eating my saurine in the morning because of that comment. And that was probably a third of my daily calories. And I stopped because somebody had made a joke that I was eating cake for breakfast, and I couldn't handle that in the mindset I was in. So I just stopped eating it. I stopped taking it. And then they'd also make comments like, gosh, I wish I was as good as you, that I could just eat a plain salad or just a cup of soup for lunch. And that kind of spurred me on. But like, that's so bad. Like, that wasn't me being strong and something to aim for. That was me eating nothing, and you rewarding me and praising me for it. And like, people would make comments like, when there's like biscuits in the staff room, like, gosh, I wish I could be more like you. You never take the biscuits that are in the staff room. You never take the cakes in the staff room. And it just encouraged me.
Yeah. Whereas I had it the other way. Like, I used to just have a cup of soup for lunch. I'd have nothing all day. Then I'd have a cup of soup for lunch, and then that'd be it until then I'd have my tea, and then that'd be it. And I mean, it wasn't an eating disorder. I just wanted to be thin. And it wasn't, no, I mean, like, it wasn't control. It was just a shit diet. It wasn't an eting disorder. It was a shit diet. And there's a really important difference. But people would say to me, like, you cannot just have that. You must eat something more. You can't just have that for your dinner. And I think, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Stop commenting on what other people are eating.
Yeah. And I think that's hard. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go on.
Well, I was just, I've had that all my life as well, because, since being like 14, because I've been a vegetarian. And again, people think it's all right to comment on your food if you're a vegetarian, and like just say, you're not having a pork chop with that. And you're like, oh my God, why are you? And even now I've got issues with, like, if I'm eating something in the kitchen, Dali quite, unobtrusively will come in and say, oh, you're having some toast. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm like, don't comment on it. Because now
super defensive about what you eat.
Yeah, I really am. And I just
don't
comes
from somewhere, doesn't it? That comes
yeah.
from something. That's not just something we're doing as like a quirk. Like that really does, it hits us somewhere that we don't quite understand, and it kind of enrages us.
I think as well,
like, also it's a don't look at me. Don't look at me. I'm eating.
Yeah, don't look at me while I'm eating.
I think as well, like the language that we use around food has to change. Like Joanne was saying, like, you know, I knew that some foods were bad, and you know, Teri, you saying, you know, saurine is good because it's high in calories and it keeps me going. And, you know, we need to get out of this. No food is bad.
Yeah.
Like, just some food is less healthy than others. And like the whole kind of
Watchers. So Weight Watchers have rebranded. They've rebranded. So they had this. They had the thing that they had the sins, and they had the good food and the bad food, the red and the whatever. And they have recently rebranded and said they're going to stop calling them sins. I don't know whether they have on the planet on it, because they don't want this mentality. I mean, they're still fucking Weight Watchers, aren't they? They're all raison d'etre to make us thinner. You're right, Joe. Yeah, they've even rebranded to take that out. So they're WW. They don't have sin foods anymore. Yeah, they're trying to. So I suppose at least that's a little bit of responsibility there, isn't there? Although by the same token, they're still happy to take your mum's money for 20 years, Joe. And I presume she's not got that much thinner.
She has, and then she puts it back on again, and then so it goes around the loop. And to be fair, I did Weight Watchers very recently, and I really skinnied down, and like. For all the reasons, it was the control. I really enjoyed having the structure and the control. Yeah. I was a 5-2 diet for years. That really was my lifestyle. So it got to the point my friends would know, because they'd go, "Oh, do you want to come out for lunch, or is it a not eating day?" And I'm like, "It's not a not eating day."
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. Yeah. It's quite sad, isn't it? We let food dictate so much.
Our social lives. I know. It's
like
really sad.
At the worst of it, like even now, it's kind of a struggle. If I'm feeling fat, like fat isn't a feeling for a start, but we say that, don't we? If I'm feeling fat and I can't find an outfit that I'm comfortable in, and I've got an event to go to, I'll just be like, do I really want to go? Do I want to go and see my friends and have fun and be social because I feel fat?
Yeah. And do you know what as well? So Samara, again, who commented, and Sherry's commented here on this thread and said a similar thing. So Samara was saying at the weekend that she went out for tea, she had a lovely night, she wore a dress, she didn't give a shit what she looked like, she had a great time. And had she been doing that a few years ago, she would have spent the week, you know, dieting and counting calories and restricting herself so that she could go out and eat. And Sherry's just said, you know, now she purposely doesn't think about it or limiting her eating because it just makes her miserable. And so you're absolutely right. There's something, you know, that we independently need to reach this mindset of actually, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to go out and see my friends and, you know, enjoy myself. But okay, so a couple of things then. We are running out of time. Time is marching on. So how to deal with these things in the workplace? You know, first of all, think about your colleagues. Don't comment on their food. Secondly, if we all start to think a little bit more about language. Thirdly, I think it's really important that we are able to talk about it. We need to bring these conversations out in the open because we've all used the word shame at some point in this conversation. And, you know, it's really important that we bring these conversations out and we are allowed to have them. And I accept that that might not be necessarily with Doris that sits next to you in the office, but somebody in your workplace you should be able to have that conversation with and say, you know, actually this is an issue I'm experiencing, what can we do about it? Hannah?
Well, exactly. And I think it comes down to being policy driven and being an open forum for talking about mental health problems. I think, you know, it is a mental health problem and mental health in the workplace has come a long way, but that doesn't necessarily incorporate eating disorders. And I think a lot of workplace policy just doesn't exclude eating disorders, but isn't including it as a matter of course. You know, we talk about depression and anxiety and even OCD and even like neurodiverse issues like autism. You know, we talk about these things. We have policies for these things. We have support mechanisms in place, but we don't actively seek out and support. We don't proactively support colleagues who have got eating disorders or make it known that you know it's okay to talk about it if you want to.
And the point is, if you are silent on something, if you don't openly say this is allowed, it will be assumed that it is not. And so, as employers, it's absolutely on our heads, isn't it, to normalize these conversations and to say, you know, there's not necessarily an inclusive list, but if you have an issue, you come and talk to us. You are allowed to broach it.
And food is very much a reward in a lot of workplaces. You have pizza Fridays, you go out for lunch, or, you know, sweets are brought into the office. And similarly, now it's getting more common that alcohol is a reward in the workplace. I think we need to get out of or just be mindful as employers that might not be appropriate for everyone, just like how alcohol isn't appropriate for everyone.
Yeah, because it could be so triggering, couldn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
It's a really good point because, you know, a lot, like we used to have donuts in the workplace. Tales from the Garage, Hannah. We used to have donuts on a Friday. And again, you know, it's about having that conversation. If you're going to, you know, that's a lovely treat for most employees. That is going to be a lovely treat to have pizza or donuts or beer on a Friday. But again, it's about having that conversation first and saying, is this going to upset somebody? If it is going to upset them, what would you rather we do? What is a better inclusive thing? And again, you don't have to have that conversation in front of everybody, but you can do it in a sensitive way. You know, send an email around, allow people to contact you confidentially, do it on individual WhatsApps, whatever, but just have that approachable open forum where people can say, actually, that's going to make me uncomfortable. Can we go to the cinema instead? And then, you know, I can sit in the dark and I don't have to eat anything.
And I think as well, like there was like people kick back against things like that, like, oh, it's political correctness gone mad. Oh, we can't bloody say anything now. We can't say Christmas now. We can't even have pizza. We can't have Donut Friday. And I think, you know, it needs to be clear from the top that you're an inclusive workplace and you support all your colleagues and like intolerance is not tolerated.
Do you know what? It's exactly that. I mean, this is what we were saying on the intersectionality one the other day, isn't it? Everyone will go, oh, no, we can't have donuts because, you know, Barbara's going to get upset about it. But actually, Barbara probably wouldn't mind if you all had donuts. She just doesn't want you to all sit there going, why aren't you having a donut, Barbara? So
that's literally it. It's not about saying you can never have food or talk about food. It's just like, if someone's not eating something, I've had to make up allergies before in the past just because people won't leave me alone. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you're just not hungry. Can we just normalize not being hungry?
Yeah. That's when it's not my eating day used to come in handy.
Yeah.
People were just very open about that. But I know when I was, the head of the department, and yes, food was used as a reward, but there became a time, and it was a smallish group, so 16 of us, all women, and it was up for discussion of what do you want the reward to be when you buy a new author. I think it had to go up. We used to have book tokens, but for whatever reason that had to do away with. It was awkward anyway. But it was agreed that, there was something anyway. I forget the additional reward, but it was in our acquisition meeting every week. And people voted on this. They just wanted to have the treat of their choice brought for the whole team. And that was a nice way to do it, because if your treat of choice actually was a load of fruit, then that's what I'd go out and buy for them. And that's what we'd have. And it was a choice then, and it wasn't like forced down your throat. And I do remember the time when we moved from having treats to include healthier snacks if people wanted it. So that was a little bit of a shift in the right direction. But saying that, I feel like I was guilty at times of being a feeder, because I would show love with food, sadly.
Yeah. Same
I
here.
am a feeder. Yeah, I am a feeder. Yeah. And again,
especially
that comes from my mum.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was managing a team, I used to always take them bits of chocolate, just, as a kind of thank you, and maybe they didn't bloody want it.
Well, but I do. The thing is, I take food, but I don't sit over people and make them watch it. So it's like, here is food. I will put the food in the middle of the table. You may access as much of it as you want to access. And I don't sit there and pile people's plates up and keep saying, go and get something else, go and get more. It's just, there it is. Do what you want with it. But yeah, I think that's a really good point, Joe. So that's how to be inclusive, isn't it? Either if you're having a treat Friday, ask people what treat they want, or have it on a rotation. Each Friday, somebody else picks the treat for everybody else to have, and then it's fair, isn't it? So that's it. It's not about being a misery guts. It's just about thinking about how other people are feeling. And I think above all, don't sit there saying to people, right, now I know that you've got an eating disorder, you must eat this, I'm going to sit here and watch you until you've eaten it. And, because that's just the worst possible thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, there we go. We've reached the end of time. In fact, we've got 6 minutes over time. So thank you so much to everybody who is watching on the Facebook Live. If you are listening on the podcast and you would like to join the conversations on the Facebook Live, what we have talked about nonstop throughout, then you can go to Facebook, Shooting the Shit. It's bright pink and bright yellow, and you can't miss it. Thank you so much, Hannah, Joe, and Teri. It has been fantabulous. Hannah, are you waving, or do you want to say something?
I was both.
I was waiting.
If anybody does want any help and support on this, you can go to beateatingdisorders.org.uk, where there's loads of resources and advice on eating disorders for either yourself or someone that you know.
Yes, absolutely. And if anyone wants to chat to us about any of the eating disorders or issues that we've suffered with, we are more than happy to chat to anybody. You can comment or you can contact us individually. That's it. Thanks very much, chaps. I'm going to press the end button. So now we really do need to all wave. 1, 2, 3.
Oh.
Goodbye.